Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Green Day, St. Patty's Day.
Top of the morning to all of you.
And I have on my green shirt, which you can't see the sparklies, but it says, "Kiss me, I'm Irish." And I am Irish.
Yeah, me too. So that's why I feel kind of obligated. It's the one day a year,
Oh, goodness.
That reminds me, we should be celebrating everybody. If we were to celebrate each ethnic representation, we've been celebrating all year. I don't know why we don't.
I see nothing wrong with that.
Me neither. The more the merrier, and the happier we might be.
I think we probably would be. It probably would give us a reason to find those among us that are Irish or part Irish. I'm 50% Scandinavian on my mother's side, so Swedish and Norwegian.
I'm about 30-40% Irish, and another 30-40% Scottish, and then another 25% English, and then there's something called Cornish. So I've got a little teeny bit of Cornish. I must be in my little toe.
I don't know, but it's interesting with all of our backgrounds, what we bring to the table.
Amen.
And we truly are. America truly is a melting pot, and it helps all of us to learn and to grow and celebrate.
We need to celebrate it and welcome everyone, regardless of where they come from. And it's not just about your ethnicities. It's also about whether you come from poverty. Do you come from wealth? Do you come from middle class? I mean, if all those things, along with our ethnicities and other, the kind of work we do, it makes up who we are. And so no one of us is exactly the same, which I find quite refreshing.
And how many did you have in your family? How many did your parents have? Were you from the city or were you from the country? And I always say, well, I'm a city girl because I grew up in Plainville and with 1,600 people, or maybe 1,500 people. But it's farm country around, and most of my family were farmers. Great contributions to who I am and why I am.
Absolutely. And it forms us in ways we don't even fully understand, I think, until we get a little bit older and we can look back with some perspective.
Yes, and pull that out. Why am I reacting in a certain way, or how
why
can
do I say this? Yeah. Why do I say this? Why do I say that? And and how do I say it? It's kind of like looking at different interpretations in the Bible, and you can read the same verse in several different translations, and A, come away with a little bit fuller understanding. B, maybe a perspective that you hadn't thought of before. And it's just really quite fascinating.
Well, and fascinating, yes. And in Sunday school, Debbie's leading us in discussions that we're just taking Bible verses and reading maybe 4 different interpretations or 4 different writings from each of those scriptures. And some of them are like, I don't even understand what did I just read? I don't understand that. And then you read a different version, or someone else reads a different version, and it's like, wow, that makes perfect sense to me right now, today. where I am.
Well, it's like yesterday, Robert Vaughn brought a book and he shared a paragraph from that book. And it was really kind of talking about what we're talking about now, is about talking about claiming your faith out loud. Rather than, there's a value in private prayer and internal prayer where you're praying inside. And one of our members in our class said, I used to sit there and pray when I'm taking a test at school, thinking I'm making a deal with God. Hey, I didn't study, but can you get me through this test? And I promise I'll study next week. How many of us did that?
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and it's like Pastor Lydia mentioned yesterday in the message about struggles of life, and what are those things that cause us to struggle, that pull us under? Do we even really realize what those things are, those challenges that we have? And I added a few to what she had given us. It's like, what are the different struggles that as adults, or as supposed to be as adults, that we face? The biggest one, I think, financial struggles. Just maybe not, we can't pay the bills, but do we have enough to do what we want to do and live the way we're currently living for the rest of our lives? Do we have enough financially to continue to give to the church and to support organizations and other people? There's the emotional struggles that we all experience at various times, and the spiritual struggles. And as we get older, physical struggles. And then when I went back, and I also was reading from Philippians 3 last night, the relational struggles that we have. They are stumbling blocks, and Jesus stood firm, and that is what we are supposed to do, is to stand firm in our beliefs and ask for help. Pray that I can get through this test. It's not a test I'm taking in a class, but we're challenged every day with some kind of a test. And how do we respond to that?
Well, I'm reminded of some of the things I watched, as you read about Jesus, and we've watched The Chosen, and I can put it into perspective in my mind. It's kind of like a movie that plays in my head as I visualize Jesus walking and calling them, follow me, but he didn't insist on it. But he was compelling enough to compel people to follow him. And if you didn't find, and if you did find, it wasn't like he forced you into conscription to join the army of Christ. It was more or less a choice left up to you. But he was so compelling that, people felt compelled to follow. They wanted what he had, a quiet, steady faith. And the faith, and strong enough that where he could walk away if he needed to. And I think sometimes we struggle with when to walk away from some of our financial problems, some of our emotional, the people that cause them, or the situation that causes them. How do you leave that when it's consuming you? And the physical stuff, we can work toward healing, and we can work toward getting better and doing our physical therapy, and the things, taking our medicine, whatever it takes to make you somewhat more able in the physical realm. And in relational, sometimes you have to walk away. in order to heal yourself.
Not that you can't go back. But
Absolutely.
sometimes you have to separate from a situation, or you take time. Just take the time to think. And one of the things that I made a note of was the struggles that we have, and regardless of what of those categories that it fall in, my struggle with spiritual probably is not the same struggle that you are having right now with spiritual. I don't think we're ever exactly on the same page because of all of the things that influence our lives, that cause us to have specific struggles. And we all have. I mean, there's nobody that doesn't have something that they're confronting right now. You know, it's kind of like the old cause and effect thing, that if I only would have, this could have been, or this would have been.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
But didn't.
Yeah.
Oops. Oh, I got to go take that test, so I'm going to pray right now.
Wonder why this relationship deteriorated. What was there about that? What part did I play in that? And how can I fix me? You may not be able to help someone else adjust, but you can do work on you, and sometimes by example influence the situation.
Because Jesus led by example.
Absolutely.
Paul
hard.
led by example. But sometimes they had to walk away and say, okay, these they're not getting it.
Sometimes I think we feel compelled to talk it and put our selves out there in a way that doesn't allow for anybody else to weigh in. They just shut people down by the kind of conversation you've had, by your body language, by your demeanor. It's just very easy to shut people down when you don't want to deal with it, or you are insisting on something.
And sometimes that's protection mode for the person that doesn't want to deal with something at any given time. You know, we from the sermon yesterday, we drown in our distractions, those things that put pressure on us, that challenge us. And how do we handle those?
It's very difficult.
It's
very difficult. I'm struggling with that right now, and I'm trying to find solutions to relationship issues. And it's not my at-home relationships, it's with other people in the community.
Yeah.
And it's my perceptions that probably stand in the way, and other people's rigidity, or what I think is rigidity. And it's like, okay, so I have to stop and not insist. I have to be able to walk away and regroup and pray for enlightenment.
Well, and from Philippians 3, verse 17, the goal of a Christian is to become more like Christ. When I think about this, do my words and actions and my attitudes always, that's the key word, do they always reflect a life focused on Jesus? Do I surround myself with people who have the same values that I do? I'm going to say for the most part, yes, I do. Surround myself with people with the same values. But no, I do not. I don't think it's humanly possible to be 100% of the time the perfect example, because we are human and we make mistakes.
Because you're passionate about what you're doing. Sometimes we become passionate, and there's such a great blessing in being passionate about what you believe. But there's also a great danger that you, by sheer force of will, you can force everyone else to think like you. And sometimes that's really hard to overcome when someone feels compelled to do that, or whether you can feel compelled to do that. I mean, we all have been in that situation.
And I need people to keep me on track. I don't want everybody to be like me, because
Well, yeah,
no.
there's some aspects of my personality I wouldn't want to see sitting across the table.
Oh my gosh. So,
Good morning, Brienne.
yes, good morning. One of the things that the church is working on right now is our vision and mission statements. And we just adopted a new church vision statement: together in faith, serving, growing, and welcoming all. And when we first said yes, that was what we wanted, I thought that's pretty simple. But not after the sermon yesterday, not after reading more in Philippians. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a challenge before us. And the mission includes and requires a commitment from every single person that enters the doors of the church. How much we focus on each other and on each of these specific areas that I mentioned before: financial, emotional, spiritual, physical, and relational. It's between me and God, but it's also between me and the church. And how I interact on a spiritual level with others at church may or may not influence them at any given time. But I think any conversations that we have that touch the spot, and that spot could be the financial, it could be the emotional, it could be the spiritual. It helps shape how we're feeling at any given time. And our vision is a goal. It is our goal. Our mission statement is why. How do we make the mission? How do we make it happen?
It's also the how. How do we get there?
Yes.
It kind of has to say, this is our goal. We have a vision statement, the mission statement. How do we put pedal to the metal, feet on the ground, words into action? And it's very complex, and it's very sensitive, and we've all changed, so it can't be the same as the one we had before, because we're in a different place today. So we have to revisit ourselves and re-examine how to get from this place to this place. Our last goal got us to this place. So now we need to revamp that and say, okay, now we need to go take the next step in growth and in attitude and in spirituality and in all the things. I don't know.
I was just reading verse 4, chapter 3. Yet I could have confidence in myself, if anyone could, if others have reason for confidence in their own efforts. I have even more. We have to have confidence in ourselves. We have to have confidence in others. But sometimes that requires us to be supportive or to accept support, not only from reading scriptures or from praying, but we have to listen to others, just like our exchange in Sunday school. Those have been so helpful. And with everybody sharing. I mean, it's not just one or two of us. There's a lot of people that are sharing.
And respecting the person's voice. And that's what the challenge is. I don't care what group in the church or outside of the church that you are a part of. You have to, there's give and take. So you listen to this person and you listen to this person and you listen to this person. And then maybe in your own mind, in prayer, or as a group, you make you take a different path, because revelation has happened, growth has happened, spirituality, God has touched you in some way. So that's the goal. That's the hope, that we can be touched and feel God inside of us so that we can reflect God outward. And it's hard. It's not easy.
Nobody said that being a Christian and becoming more like Christ is easy. I don't think anybody would ever say that it was easy.
No.
But the reward is worth
right
keeping our eye on the goal.
But everybody's perception of the goal sometimes is a little different. That's why you have to sometimes have those heated discussions about why you feel passionately about this. Not in a disrespectful way, but in a respectful way, saying, hey, this is where I'm coming from, and this is why, and just kind of laying it out in simplistic terms that everyone can understand. And then the next person, and the next person, until you have all the building blocks you need for the new vision.
Well, and just Jesus is our lifeline in all of our struggles. And when we have difficult conversations, or when we are finally brave enough to speak up and to share what a scripture meant to us, or how I interpreted, we do have to be very sensitive and very supportive to help bring those who are shy, unlike me, to the front, so that they can be heard. It helps all of us when we hear how everybody interprets a specific issue or situation.
Well, Jesus, he had a plan. He had a plan, and he knew what his mission was, because he was in constant connection with God, his Father. And so, no, this isn't the time. He kept saying that and kept saying that. And then all of a sudden he said, this is my time. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And I've got to do this. And I'm going to do it. And he stood firm and he accomplished it. But he didn't just do it all the time. He waited for the plan, and he implemented the plan that he and his father had, or his father had communicated to him, the plan. Even though he knew it would lead to the cross, he kept saying, well, now today I have to speak about this, today I have to speak about that, and today I have to speak about that. Knowing full well people were taking notes and reporting back to the Pharisees, and, every step he took led to the cross, and he knew that. I find that, monumental.
almost not comprehensible.
Yes.
And then I could go down that path and say, I just don't understand. There's so much that I just don't understand. And yet, then I look the other side and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's told us and taught us so much through Bible study, through Sunday school, through the messages from our pastors, from just a regular conversation with so many people.
Well, and how do we apply it? How do we live it today? I mean, yeah, we all have our own cross to bear. I've heard that all my life. My mom would repeat that. And some of these things that you heard over your course of your lifetime, everybody has a cross to bear. And that is so true, whether it's financial, spiritual, physical, whatever that is, we all have our cross to bear. And it's challenging, and our way of resolving it may not be perfect, like, Jesus Christ. And then we have our 190th anniversary this fall, and we're making plans, and we are trying to live out Christ's vision for our church. Please join us in that vision, no matter where you are.
One of the things also that I've heard in the last week, or in the planning of the 190th, all of the planning and the organizing and the research, the coordinate. I mean, it's a huge undertaking, but all of our history that we're working on, that is causing us to look inward. And all of the things that cause us to look outward are the future plans, the future of the church. How long can we secure that corner of Spring and Maple for First United Methodist Church? We have to be focused not just on the inward, on the history part. We have to focus on outward. Our mission, our vision in independence.
Well, and I think we all come to the table with a little bit different idea about how that should happen. And I just hope that we can all contribute in meaningful ways so that we can all be that tree. There's the roots. We have the foundation. We have the tree trunk. Now, what are the branches and the leaves going to do to help us out, to help the tree?
Well, and so I think there's everybody, Debbie, even you who've only been with us a few years, and me who've been there 50 plus those years, we all have something to contribute. Or someone that has just come and joined us. Because what does it mean to you to be where you are right now as part of First United Methodist Church compared to what it means to me, having been there the better part of my life?
Well, and we get caught up in, well, we've always done it this way.
Right.
I like it. And I don't want to change, and I like it this way. But sometimes we can bring some of the tried and true methods into the future with a little bit different twist. It's not that anything has really changed, but how we implement it may have changed, or how we do it is going to be a little bit different because society is different. Our place in independence is different.
And we've grown.
Yes.
Personally, spiritually, physically,
Yes.
emotional. We've grown in all those areas.
And
So-
we have some really great foundations, but even our ancestors in the past, they took it from a small church to the church it is today. Can you imagine the amount of change that had to happen in order to get it there? I think sometimes we've forgotten that there was a whole lot of change in every other generation, and they probably struggled with it like we are.
I am sure. I am sure that is true. So we are at the end of our time. I don't know how it goes so quickly. I had wanted to share with you before we ended part of the words from "It Is Well with My Soul" about So just the first verse. When peace like a river attendeth by way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. I absolutely love this hymn. It has tremendous meaning why it was written, but hymns just have a way of speaking to us, and depending on where you are in your life, this particular hymn speaks volumes, regardless of what your struggle. This seems to answer so many of those questions. I encourage all of you to look up the lyrics to that, or grab a hymnal or a songbook that you might have at home and read through those words. I bet you can't read it without humming those words, the tune in your head. So focus on that this week. It is well with our soul, and Amen. It will all be great. Bye, everybody.